Hello world! Today I want to take a look into Lilo and Stitch Trouble in Paradise, or Lilo and Stitch, depending on where you're from, for the PS1. Now I remember I had this game as a kid and I absolutely loved it, but there were a few things that weren't exactly faithful to the source material. So I want to take a look back and see if it was just another piece of shovelware, or if it actually had something interesting going for it. So let's dive in! Welcome to the wonderful pixelated world of Hawaii. Lilo and Stitch Trouble in Paradise was created in 2002, so its 20th anniversary is coming up this year, which is pretty insane, and it was developed by Blitz Game Studios, the same company that did bring us Glover, pretty amazing, but it also happened to bring us iCarly, Karaoke Revolution, Biggest Loser and U-Star 2, so unsure really of what to think going into this game. It's an action platformer where you can take control of either Lilo or Stitch as you go through the stages in the game. Both of them have a pretty typical platformer moveset, with both of them able to run, jump, ground pound, or attack enemies with their own unique variants. We'll talk about Lilo first. Lilo can use this Voodoo doll to attack enemies where it shines. I'm not really sure that she can use voodoo magic in the film, but it works well enough if the range is a bit short. She can also pocket explosive barrels, which she can then place in front of her later on, which I'm not really sure why she can do this, and it didn't end up having much of a use when I was playing, other than sometimes to just get the barrels out of the way sooner. Lilo can also pick up a special item that will allow her to summon the tourist, the fat guy eating an ice cream from the film, to smite down her enemies by squashing them. So this can be pretty helpful if there's a pesky plant in the way and you don't really know how to get past it, and you have no explosive barrels on you. Other than that, her moveset's pretty simple. I found her to be slightly more difficult than Stitch because she seems to be a bit shorter in range. Now let's talk about Stitch. Stitch has a acid breath attack instead of the voodoo doll, which I think is slightly wider and is able to hit enemies a bit more consistently. Stitch also has a power-up meter, which he fills by collecting coffee, and at max coffee meter he is able to go into a frenzied state where he rolls into a bowl and can jump and attack enemies really fast. However, I made the mistake, considering there's a music change and there's a berserk meter, that it would be similar to Crash Bandicoot in that he would be invincible, and he is definitely not. He can die, and did die during my playthrough when I activated this. Overall, I do prefer playing as Stitch just because I can more consistently hit enemies, but both of them function very similarly and get the same amount of runtime really, as they both get alternated between in the levels. The levels themselves have pretty wide variety of locales, taking you from a beach to lush forests and even up a volcano, so I feel like they represent Hawaii pretty well. The levels are also quite beautiful considering that it's the PS1. I was really impressed, and I was also really impressed with the music. There are some certified bops on this game, especially the chase music. I think the last one, especially with Gantu, is absolutely insane. Really, really good tracks, and I did not expect that. There are also some really nice slower paced jams to reflect the hub worlds or some more relaxing early game stages as well. So I was really impressed on that side of things. The main area where I find the game tends to suffer is with the enemies. The enemies have classic early PS1 bad hitboxes in that it's really inconsistent whether you hit them or they'll hit you, and it's often not of any fault of your own. They're often placed also behind crates or boxes, and sometimes you can get a really cheap death just because you didn't even see them coming. This may partially because I was kind of in a bit of a hurry towards some of the ender stages, but I was streaming the game and I wanted to go to bed. But it is a little bit difficult when you're on your last life, you're just about to finish, and suddenly you get pipped to the post by a plant hiding behind a wooden or stone box. Not ideal. The main problem with the enemies in this game is actually the bosses. And by bosses I mean boss. There is a singular boss and he doesn't show up in the film. Meet the Rock Titan. The Rock Titan randomly shows up after you've completed a couple of levels before the next level, and you can only do the next level after you've got past him. The Rock Titan's movesets are very similar each time you fight him, and the only real difference is that every time he'll have slightly more health. After he attacks, you've just got to wait for him to turn around and hit him in the back. Rinse and repeat, and repeat, and repeat. Because there isn't any other bosses like this. I would have loved to have seen the Rock Titan get a few more moves to make him more formidable, or to place some of the Disney characters in a position like this and face off against those. However, they're really relegated just to chase sequences. The chase sequences are good, I don't mind them at all, especially the one against Gantu towards the end of the game is fantastic. It's really, really intense and it forms a great climax. But the game is really crying out for a boss at the end of that chase to really have a satisfying payoff. The chase sequences also suffer from a really interesting problem in that chase is mostly guided by tokens that you're collecting as you're running away from the boss. The tokens guide you towards the safe path, and without the tokens, for example if you die partway through, those collected tokens will stay with you and so won't be available to pick up anymore. You can't see them, and so you can't see the path. You end up just trial and erroring, which takes a lot longer and can be really tedious, especially if you nearly made it to the end and collected most of the tokens the first time through. So I'm not a big fan of these chase sequences. However, I did really appreciate the Myrtle chase with Lilo, where you've got to go against her old classmate who's on a tricycle who keeps bumping into exploding barrels. Just because I absolutely hated her in the film, and watching her eat shit like this over and over again was phenomenal. Absolutely loved it. So there's really a mixed bag here. There's some aspects of this game that really surprised me in the visuals, the music. I actually also did quite like the movement of the characters. However, anything to do with enemies suddenly became a lot more hit and miss, and as you can imagine, that was fairly plentiful. So it makes it difficult to know how we rank this game. In terms of extras, there's not a whole lot to talk about here really. There's no side modes that I could find anyway, and there isn't anything that you can collect outside of the main collectibles in each level. So there isn't really much of a reason to give this a second playthrough. However, I did enjoy the fact that the main menu is actually Lilo's bedroom and she wanders around and interacts with various parts of the room. That seems kind of pretty commonplace nowadays, but for a PS1 title that easily could have just had a stock 2D menu, I really appreciated this. So, Lilo & Stitch is not the best game in the world, but it surprisingly holds up considering that it really had no right to be anywhere near as good as it turned out to be. It's still difficult to play, confusing, doesn't have proper boss battles, and the boss battles it does have it reuses over and over again, but actually I really didn't mind it. Let me know what games you'd like to see next on the channel. This is the first video of its kind right here. I'm going to be streaming a whole bunch of older games and some horror games over on twitch.tv/Matathon as well. So if you want to check out me actually playing it through for the first time live, then you know where to go. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you later. Bye bye.